Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a graphic designer working freelance from my home office. I love what I do, creating brand identities for small businesses, designing wedding invitations, the kind of work that lets me be creative while paying the bills. But that Sunday evening in November, when my parents announced they were moving in with me temporarily after selling their house to fund my sister's revolutionary app idea, they had no clue that I'd already signed a lease on a tiny studio apartment and was moving out the next day. Have you ever been treated like your family's backup plan? Like your life, your space, your financial stability was just there for them to use whenever they needed it? Comment below and let me know, because what happened next changed everything between us forever. It started like any other family dinner. Mom had made her famous pot roast, Dad was complaining about the Patriots' latest loss, and my sister Sophia was scrolling through her phone at the dinner table like she always does. I should have known something was up when Mom kept glancing at Dad with that look. You know the one, where parents are communicating in their secret married couple telepathy. Maya, honey, Mom started, setting down her fork with that overly casual tone that immediately put me on edge. Your father and I have some exciting news to share. I looked up from my mashed potatoes, already feeling that familiar knot forming in my stomach. In our family, exciting news usually meant someone needed money, someone was moving, or someone had made a major life decision that would somehow require my involvement, whether I wanted it or not. Dad cleared his throat and smiled that forced smile he uses when he's about to say something he knows I won't like. We've decided to invest in Sophia's business venture. My sister finally looked up from her phone, her face lighting up like she'd just won the lottery. Dad, you don't have to announce it like that. Just tell her we sold the house. The words hit me like a slap. You sold the house? Well, we put it on the market last month, Mom said quickly, as if the timing made it better somehow. It went faster than we expected. The market is so hot right now, and we got an offer we couldn't refuse. I stared at them, my mind racing. Their house, the house I grew up in, where I'd had birthday parties in the backyard, where I'd learned to ride my bike in the driveway, where every major moment of my childhood had happened, was gone, sold, without anyone bothering to mention it to me. $200,000, Sophia said, unable to contain her excitement. That's what they're investing in my app. Maya, this is going to change everything. We're talking about revolutionizing the way people connect with local businesses. It's like Yelp meets Instagram meets GPS navigation, but better. I'd heard about Sophia's app idea before. She'd been talking about it for months, bouncing from one concept to another, never quite settling on exactly what it would do or how it would work. Last month, it was a dating app for dog owners. The month before that, it was some kind of cryptocurrency for college students. Now, apparently, it was a business directory with social media features. That's great, I managed to say, though my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. But where are you guys going to live? This is where Mom and Dad exchanged another one of those looks, and I absolutely knew, that whatever came next was going to turn my world upside down. Well, Dad said, leaning back in his chair like he was about to deliver the most reasonable proposition in the world. We were hoping we could stay with you for a while. Just temporarily, of course, until Sophia's app takes off and we can find a new place. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, the refrigerator humming, even the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Stay with me, I repeated slowly. You have that lovely 2-bedroom apartment. Mom jumped in, her voice bright and cheerful, like she was suggesting we all go see a movie together. And you're hardly ever there anyway, always working on your computer. We wouldn't be any trouble at all. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. Mostly I wanted to run out of that dining room and never come back. They had sold their house, to fund my sister's latest business fantasy, and they just assumed I would take them in. No discussion. No asking if it was okay. No consideration for what I might want or need or have planned for my own life. How long is temporarily? I asked. Sophia waved her hand dismissively. 6 months, maybe a year at most. Once the app launches and we start seeing revenue, Mom and Dad can buy whatever house they want. This is an investment in all of our futures, Maya. All of our futures. As if I had any say in this decision. As if my life was just an extension of theirs, available for their use whenever it was convenient. I don't understand, I said, looking around the table at their expectant faces. Why didn't anyone ask me about this? Why am I just hearing about all of this now? Dad frowned like I was being unreasonable. Maya, we're family. Family helps family. We didn't think we needed to ask permission to stay with our own daughter. But you need permission to sell your house and invest everything in a business that doesn't exist yet? The business does exist, Sophia snapped. I have wireframes. I have a business plan. I have meetings lined up with potential investors. This isn't some pipe dream, Maya. This is a real opportunity. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand in that condescending way she's done since I was 5 years old. Honey, I know this is a lot to take in, but you'll see. Once you think about it, you'll realize this is the best thing for everyone. Sophia gets the funding she needs to launch her company. Your father and I get to help our daughter achieve her dreams, and you get to be part of something really special. Something really special. What was special was that they had managed to make a decision that would completely upend my life without bothering to include me in any part of the conversation. What was special was that they assumed I would just go along with whatever they wanted because I always had before. And that's when Sophia said the words that made my blood run cold. Besides, Maya's always been the one who holds the family together. She's the responsible one. She'll do the right thing. The responsible one. The one who holds the family together. The one who always does the right thing. I'd been hearing those words my entire life, and I was finally starting to understand what they really meant. They meant I was the one who was expected to sacrifice. I was the one who was supposed to put everyone else's needs before my own. I was the one who would always be there to clean up everyone else's messes and pay for everyone else's dreams. When I was 18 and ready to start college, my college fund had mysteriously evaporated to help with mortgage payments during Dad's brief unemployment. Maya's smart, they'd said. She'll figure out how to pay for school. She always does. When Sophia needed a car for her junior year of college, somehow I ended up co-signing the loan because her credit wasn't good enough. When she defaulted 6 months later, guess who was stuck making the payments? Maya's got a steady job, they'd said. She can handle it. When Mom needed surgery 3 years ago and their insurance didn't cover everything, who did they turn to for the $5,000 difference? Maya's been saving money, they'd said. She's always been so good with finances. I had been the responsible one. I had held the family together. I had always done what they considered the right thing. But sitting in that dining room, listening to them plan out my life like I was just another piece of furniture they could rearrange at will, something inside me finally snapped. No, I said quietly. The conversation stopped. All three of them looked at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. No, I said again, louder this time. I'm not doing this. Dad's face darkened. Maya, don't be dramatic. We're not asking you to support us forever, just until... Until when? I stood up from the table, my hands shaking but my voice getting stronger. Until Sophia's app makes millions? Until you can afford to buy another house? Until someone else comes along to take care of you? Mom's eyes filled with tears, which was her go-to move whenever anyone in the family dared to disagree with her. Honey, we're not asking for much, just a place to stay. We're your parents. We raised you, we sacrificed for you. When? The word came out sharper than I intended. When did you sacrifice for me? When you used my college fund to pay your bills? When you expected me to cover Sophia's car payments? When you assumed I'd just hand over my savings whenever you needed them? Sophia slammed her phone down on the table. God, Maya, you're being so selfish. This is about the family. This is about building something together. Building what? Building Sophia's dream while everyone else pays for it? Building our future! Sophia's voice was rising now, taking on that shrill quality it got whenever she didn't get her way. Mom and Dad believe in me. They're willing to invest in my vision. Why can't you be supportive? I looked around the table at their faces. Dad's disappointed frown, Mom's manipulative tears, Sophia's entitled outrage, and I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. This wasn't about family. This wasn't about love or support or building something together. This was about control. This was about keeping me in my assigned role as the family's safety net, the responsible one who would always be there to catch everyone when they fell. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known because they'd never bothered to ask about my life or my plans or my dreams, was that I had already made a decision of my own. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My hands were steady now, my voice calm and clear as I placed it on the table in front of them. "What's this?" Mom asked, her tears conveniently forgotten as she unfolded the document. "It's a lease agreement," I said, "for a studio apartment downtown. I signed it 2 weeks ago. I'm moving out tomorrow." The silence that followed was even more complete than before. I could see them processing what I'd just said, their faces cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, anger. "A studio?" Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. "But you have a perfectly good 2-bedroom apartment." "Had," I corrected. "I gave notice last month. The lease ends tomorrow." Sophia grabbed the paper from Mom's hands, scanning it quickly. This is 400 square feet. Maya, there's no room for anyone else here." "I know," I said simply. And in that moment, as I watched their carefully constructed plan crumble before their eyes, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. Mom was the first to recover, slipping right back into manipulation mode. "Maya, this is just a misunderstanding. You can break this lease. Landlords do it all the time. We'll help you find a bigger place, somewhere that can accommodate all of us." "I don't want to break the lease," I said. "I want to live alone. I want to make my own decisions about my own life." "But we're your family," Dad said, and for the first time, I heard something like desperation in his voice. "Family sticks together. Family takes care of each other." "You're right," I said, picking up the lease agreement and folding it carefully before putting it back in my purse. Family should take care of each other. But that means all of us, not just one person taking care of everyone else. Sophia stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. "This is unbelievable. Mom and Dad just made the biggest investment of their lives in my future, and you're throwing a tantrum because you don't want roommates?" "They made an investment in your future," I said quietly. "What about mine?" The question hung in the air like smoke. None of them had an answer because none of them had ever bothered to think about it. My future had never been part of their calculations. My dreams had never factored into their plans. My needs had never been considered when they made their decisions. I was just Maya, the responsible one. The one who would always be there to clean up the mess and pay the bills and make sure everyone else got what they wanted. But not anymore. As I walked toward the front door, I could hear them behind me, their voices overlapping in a chorus of protests and accusations and desperate attempts to make me change my mind. "Maya, you can't just leave. We need to talk about this. You're being completely unreasonable." I paused at the door and turned back to look at them one last time. 3 people who had shaped my entire life, who had trained me from childhood to put their needs before my own, who had never once asked what I wanted or needed or dreamed about. "I love you," I said, and I meant it. "But I'm done being your backup plan." And then I walked out of that house, their former house, and into the rest of my life. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined as they sat in that dining room, planning out how to rearrange my existence to suit their needs, was that in my purse, next to that lease agreement, was something else. Something that would change everything. But that's a story for tomorrow, when the moving truck arrived at my apartment and found nothing there but empty rooms and a note explaining where they could forward my mail. Tomorrow, when they would finally understand that the responsible one had learned to be responsible for herself first. The moving truck arrived at my apartment complex at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, just like I'd scheduled 3 weeks earlier. I watched from my new studio's tiny window as the movers knocked on the door of my old place, waited, knocked again, then finally used the key I'd left with the building manager. What they found inside was exactly what I'd intended them to find. Empty rooms, spotless floors, and a single envelope taped to the kitchen counter with Maya's family written across it in my careful handwriting. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 6 a.m. 17 missed calls from Mom, 12 from Dad, 23 text messages from Sophia that grew increasingly frantic as the morning progressed. I'd turned the sound off after the first few calls, but I could still see the screen lighting up every few minutes like an angry strobe light. I made myself a cup of coffee in my new kitchen. If you could call a hot plate and a mini fridge a kitchen, and sat cross-legged on my new futon to read the messages I'd been ignoring. Mom's texts started out hurt. "Honey, please call us. We just want to talk." They quickly escalated to angry, "This is ridiculous, Maya. You're acting like a child." And finally landed on desperate, "We don't understand what we did wrong. Please just come home so we can work this out." Dad's messages were shorter but more direct. "Maya, call me." "Maya, this isn't funny." "Maya, we need to discuss this like adults." But Sophia's messages were something else entirely. They started at 6:17 a.m. with, "Maya, what the hell is going on?" and devolved from there into a stream of consciousness rant that revealed more about her true feelings than she probably intended. "Are you seriously doing this right now? Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family?" Mom is crying, Dad is pacing around like a caged animal, and I'm supposed to meet with potential investors next week, but now I can't focus on anything because my sister has apparently lost her mind. I screenshot that one. Something told me I might need it later. This is so typical of you, Maya. You pretend to be the responsible one, the one who cares about family, but the second we actually need you, you disappear. Do you know how selfish that is? Do you know how much damage you're doing? Another screenshot. Fine, be that way. But don't come crawling back when you realize what a huge mistake you've made. Some of us are actually trying to build something meaningful with our lives instead of hiding in tiny apartments feeling sorry for ourselves. I took a screenshot of that one too, then finally turned my phone completely off. The silence in my new space was extraordinary. No footsteps from the apartment upstairs, no muffled conversations through thin walls, no unexpected visitors showing up at my door with problems they expected me to solve. Just me, my coffee, and the sound of my own breathing. I had been planning this move for 6 months, ever since Sophia's last financial crisis, when she'd called me sobbing at 2 a.m. because she couldn't make rent and needed just a small loan to get back on her feet. That small loan had turned into $1,500 that I'd never seen again. And watching her post Instagram stories from expensive restaurants the next week had been my wake-up call. I'd started researching studio apartments that day, looking for something small and affordable that would force me to live within my means while building up my savings account for the first time in years. Something that had room for exactly one person and no space for anyone else's problems. My real estate agent had thought I was crazy. "Maya, you're approved for much more than this," she'd said as we toured the tiny space. "Are you sure you don't want something with at least one bedroom? Maybe a den where you could set up a proper office?" But I'd known this was perfect the moment I walked in. 400 square feet of possibility. 400 square feet of freedom. 400 square feet where I could finally learn what it felt like to live for myself instead of constantly accommodating everyone else's needs and emergencies. The moving process had been surprisingly simple since I'd been slowly downsizing for months. I'd sold my dining room table. When did I ever have dinner parties anyway? I'd donated boxes of clothes I'd been keeping, just in case. I'd gotten rid of the extra bedding and towels I'd accumulated over the years, the spare coffee maker, the second set of dishes. Each item I eliminated felt like shedding weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. But the most important thing I'd gotten rid of wasn't something I could donate or sell. It was something I'd been carrying around for 28 years without even realizing it. The belief that my value as a person was tied to how useful I was to other people. Around noon, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Mom standing in the hallway, holding a casserole dish and wearing her most pitiful expression. I didn't open the door. "Maya, honey, I know you're in there," she called through the wood. "I brought you lunch, that tuna casserole you used to love when you were little." I hadn't liked tuna casserole since I was 12, but Mom had never bothered to notice. "Maya, please, just let me in so we can talk about this. I don't understand what happened. Yesterday we were a family, and today, I don't know what today is." I pressed my back against the door and closed my eyes, listening to her voice crack with what sounded like genuine emotion. For a moment, I almost opened the door. The old Maya would have opened the door, would have let Mom inside, would have sat down and listened to all the reasons why I was wrong and they were right and how families are supposed to work. But the old Maya had been slowly disappearing over the past 6 months, replaced by someone who was finally learning to ask herself what she wanted instead of just automatically giving everyone else what they needed. I'm going to leave this casserole right here by your door, Mom said finally. And Maya, your father and I, we found a hotel for tonight, but we can't afford to stay there very long. I hope you'll think about that. Her footsteps faded down the hallway, and I waited another 10 minutes before opening the door to retrieve the casserole dish. Not because I wanted the food, but because I didn't want it to sit in the hallway, making my neighbors think I was inconsiderate. Even in my rebellion, I was still being responsible. Inside the dish, underneath the tuna casserole I wouldn't eat, I found a note written in Mom's careful cursive. Maya, we love you. We don't understand why you're doing this, but we love you. Please don't let whatever we did wrong destroy our family. Love always, Mom. I read it 3 times, then put it in the manila folder I'd started keeping in my kitchen drawer. The folder that was slowly filling up with evidence of just how deep this pattern went. Because here's what Mom's note revealed. What all of their messages and calls and desperate attempts to reach me revealed. Even now, even faced with the consequences of their actions, they genuinely didn't understand what they had done wrong. They didn't see that selling their house without telling me was wrong. They didn't see that assuming I would house them indefinitely was wrong. They didn't see that treating my life like it existed purely for their convenience was wrong. They saw my reaction as the problem, not their actions. They saw my boundaries as the crisis, not their complete lack of respect for my autonomy. And that's when I realized that this wasn't just about the house or Sophia's business venture or their temporary living situation. This was about something much bigger and much more fundamental. This was about the fact that in their minds, I didn't really exist as a separate person with my own wants and needs and dreams. I existed as an extension of the family unit, available for whatever they needed whenever they needed it. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before in my entire adult life. I turned off my phone and took a nap. Not because I was tired, but because I wanted to. Not because I had finished all my work or taken care of all my responsibilities, but because I felt like sleeping in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon in my own space that nobody else had access to. I woke up at 4 p.m. feeling more rested than I had in months. And that's when I saw the email that changed everything. It was from Sophia, sent to my work email address since I wasn't responding to her texts. The subject line read, "Urgent family meeting tonight." Maya, it began, I don't know what game you're playing, but it needs to stop now. Mom and Dad are devastated. They spent last night in a hotel because of your selfishness, and they can't afford to keep doing that. You're literally making our parents homeless because you want to live alone like some kind of hermit. I've scheduled a family meeting for tonight at 7 p.m. at Aunt Rebecca's house. You will be there. This isn't a request. We're going to sit down like adults and figure out how to fix this mess you've created. And Maya, I've already talked to several family members about this situation. Everyone agrees that you're being completely unreasonable. Uncle James said he's never seen anything so selfish in his entire life. Cousin Patricia thinks you've had some kind of nervous breakdown. Even Grandma Rose said she's disappointed in how you're treating your parents. So you can either show up tonight and we can work this out, or you can explain to the entire family why you care more about your precious alone time than you do about the people who raised you and loved you your whole life. The choice is yours, but either way, this ends tonight. I read the email twice, then forwarded it to my personal account and added it to my growing folder of evidence. Because here's what Sophia had just revealed without even realizing it. They had been talking about me behind my back, painting me as the villain in this story, rallying the entire extended family against me before I'd even had a chance to explain my side. They were using shame, guilt, and family pressure to try to force me back into compliance. They were making sure I knew that if I didn't fall in line, I would be ostracized from the family completely. It was emotional manipulation at its finest, and the old Maya would have fallen for it completely. But I wasn't the old Maya anymore. I spent the next hour doing something I'd never done before. I wrote down my side of the story. Not just what had happened the night before, but everything that had led up to it. Every time I'd been expected to sacrifice for the family. Every time my needs had been dismissed or ignored. Every time I'd been told I was being selfish for wanting something for myself. I wrote about the college fund that had disappeared. I wrote about co-signing Sophia's car loan and being stuck with the payments when she defaulted. I wrote about the $5,000 for mom's surgery that I'd never been repaid. I wrote about all the smaller things too. The birthday dinners where we celebrated everyone else, but somehow mine always got forgotten. The family vacations I was expected to help pay for but had no say in planning. The constant stream of small favors that were never small and never returned. By the time I finished writing, it was 6:30. Sophia's family meeting was in 30 minutes, and my phone was buzzing with increasingly frantic messages asking where I was. I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror of my tiny studio apartment. My space, my rules, my choice, and made a decision that the old Maya never could have made. I wasn't going to the meeting. Instead, I was going to send them my written account of our family's financial history. I was going to let them read, in black and white, exactly how much money I'd contributed to this family over the years and how little consideration I'd received in return. But before I hit send on what would probably be the most important email of my life, I needed to do one more thing. I needed to call the one person in my family who had always been honest with me, even when that honesty was painful. I needed to call Grandma Rose. Because if Sophia was telling the truth about Grandma being disappointed in me, I needed to hear it from her directly. And if Sophia was lying, which I suspected she was, then I needed to hear that too. I turned my phone back on and dialed the number I'd known by heart since I was 7 years old. Maya? Grandma's voice was sharp and clear despite her 82 years. Where on earth have you been? Your mother called me this morning in tears saying you'd disappeared. Hi, Grandma. I didn't disappear. I moved. Moved where? Your mother said your apartment was empty. I moved to a studio downtown. I've been planning it for months. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Maya, Grandma said finally, what exactly is going on? And don't give me some sugar-coated version. I want the truth. So I told her. I told her everything. About the house being sold without anyone telling me. About the expectation that I would just take them in. About Sophia's business venture and my parents' complete financial dependence on my living situation. When I finished, Grandma was quiet for so long, I thought the call had dropped. Grandma, are you still there? I'm here, she said, and her voice sounded different somehow. Tired. Maya, honey, did Sophia tell you I was disappointed in you? She said everyone in the family thinks I'm being selfish. She said you specifically said you were disappointed. Grandma made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sigh. Maya, I haven't talked to Sophia in 3 weeks. The last time we spoke, she was asking me if I'd consider investing in her app idea. When I told her I wasn't interested, she hung up on me. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. So you didn't say... I didn't say anything about you being selfish or disappointing because I didn't know any of this had happened until your mother called me this morning. And Maya, after hearing your side of the story, I think you did exactly the right thing. I started crying then. Big, ugly sobs that I'd been holding back for months. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. Someone believed me. Someone understood. Grandma, they want me at a family meeting tonight. They want me to explain myself to everyone. Are you going? I don't think so. Good, she said firmly. Maya, there's something I need to tell you, something I probably should have told you years ago. Your parents, they mean well, but they've never been good with money or planning or thinking about consequences. When your mother was your age, I was constantly bailing them out of financial trouble. When Sophia was born, I helped with the hospital bills. When they bought their house, I co-signed the mortgage. I had never known any of this. But Maya, you know what I've never had to do? I've never had to bail you out of anything. You've been taking care of yourself and them since you were 18 years old. And instead of being proud of the independent, responsible woman you've become, they've treated you like a resource to be used. But they're family, I said, echoing the words I'd heard my entire life. Yes, they are. and family should support each other. But support doesn't mean one person carries everyone else forever. Support means everyone contributes what they can when they can. We talked for another hour, and by the time I hung up, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I opened my laptop and began typing the email that would either fix my family or destroy it completely. But for the first time in my life, I was okay with either outcome because I was finally putting myself first. And that didn't make me selfish, it made me free.